So, guys, are you excited to talk about Will Smith again? I bet you're not. That's why we're doing it again. Listen, to be absolutely honest with you, I want to move on, but Paige came out and basically made the prescription that Ethan is being racist in some capacity or racially ignorant in the way that he's speaking about Will Smith. And so I wanted to talk about it. Now, for context, I invited Paige on. I don't think she's going to take it, and that's fine. I would have liked to get her specifically, but I had asked on the old Twitter, would you like to chat about how you feel about the H3 situation? And then she said, for context, I don't think he's being racist. I just rather ignorant to the black experience. So to me, that's not like a yes or no answer. I don't think that she's super open to it, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to respond to it in this capacity. So here's the thing. First and foremost, very surprised that Ethan is even taking this stance. Because honestly, I figured it would have been the stance that would have appeared less virtuous. And Ethan seems to have a history of pandering to his audience. And so I think that at the very least, whether you agree with him or disagree with him, I think Ethan's proven us all wrong in 4K. Because when I first saw the situation, and I saw Ethan's take, before I even read it, I saw the words Will Smith, and I was like, Ethan's gonna side with Willard Smith? Smitherton? I don't know. But he didn't. So I was like, wow, that's a big step. So anyway, let's get into this. But what I want to say is this. I think that at the end of the day, and I don't think this is Paige's perspective, but at the end of the day, asking let's first establish that this seems to be like a fringe perspective. Like, it seems to be very few black people or creators or activists saying white people stay out of our business. You have large creators like Abba and Preach that tend to take the same stance as most other people. And I think it's for context, because I don't think that there is a loud vocal like majority of people saying like, hey, this is a black issue. I think most people are just seeing this as an issue. Right now, there obviously is context there because black people are involved, but that doesn't mean that this is a 50-50 black issue / regular issue. I guess you would say this is mostly just an issue between people who happen to be black. That being said, I also want to say that the expectation that we should be justifying and excusing Will Smith's actions based on the fact that he's black is fundamentally asking us to set lower standards for black people than white people. And this engages and goes into the field of the racism of lowered expectations. We can understand context. We can understand why Jada may have been more upset than a white woman. But at the end of the day, if the fundamental argument is that it was excusable because she's black, because they're black, you're asking me to set black people to a lower standard than white people. And I don't think that that's reasonable. I understand that when it comes to, if we get deeper into this, from a systemic racism perspective, you would generally look at black people, specifically in America, versus white people, and you'd say that there's more of a justifier, or there's more reason for black people to commit crimes due to wealth disparity and other issues that stem from systemic racism. I understand that, but we're talking about rich black people, to be honest with you. But just because there may be more of a justification doesn't mean that it's okay. And I think that it's racist to suggest that we should set them to lower standards. So let us go through this here. Let us go through Ethan's take first and foremost. Will Smith just a walking L since his wife decided to start weekly humiliating him on her Facebook show. Probably should deal with whatever trauma he has with her instead of punching Chris Rock in the face with an extremely tame joke. He needs to be escorted out of the Oscars. Now, here's the thing I want you guys to understand. A lot of people are like, oh, this is a personal matter between them. They decided to have a public conversation about their relationship issues years ago. They've invited us to speculate on their marriage and their affairs. And honestly, Jada's pretty terrible. She cheated on Will Smith and, in my opinion, basically forced him into an open relationship, with the alternative being them breaking up. And based on Jada and Will's kid, Jaden, it seems like he's because I've seen the tweet, he's warped into this world where this is okay behavior. He's seen the signal from his parents that this toxic, borderline emotionally abusive that weighs against Will Smith is okay. And so Will Smith walking away seems to be, and I know this is very speculative, but to his kids would be like, ew, Dad, Mom just wants to be happy. It's actually really fucked up. And what's incredible to me is that it seems like Jada Smith is the one that's kind of orchestrating this like emotional suppression and assault onto Will Smith. And then he coops up all of his energy, and then what does it happen? It goes off here. And there's clearly an issue there. Like, this isn't even like a black issue. At this point, we're talking about somebody who's potentially like, dating like a manipulative narcissist or an emotional narcissist or something, along those lines. I mean, this gets insane. It still doesn't mean that it's okay for him to hit, though, to hit Chris Rock. Anyway, Will Smith went with a standing ovation. I'm in awe that the show went on like nothing happened. Will Smith punched a comedian for doing his job. He's a celebrity in the front row of the Oscars where it's normal to be roasted, bad taste or not. And that's true within the context. I mean, Chris Rock was making a joke at the Oscars. That's his job. And we need to understand that historically, like jesters, court jesters, they existed to criticize in a satirical manner the kings and queens. And whether you want to see it or not, like, we consider fucking celebrities kings and queens. Literally, the Oscars is a thing. It's just a bunch of celebrities parading around jerking each other off. Oh, you did such a good job in a movie. In a fucking movie. We look at these people like they're fucking kings and queens. It's insane. Incredible stuff. Somehow, everybody loved Ricky Gervais roasting the shit out of celebrities with the worst takes, jokes, but also applaud Will Smith for punching Chris Rock. Like, come on. Y'all are really with that absolute brain rot. Now, you probably don't want to be super antagonistic. For some reason, this entire situation is the most divisive thing that's happened on Twitter. But, yeah, listen, I mean, there's a level of truth to that. Ricky Gervais did the same thing, but he was criticizing people, making jokes at people in general, talking about their height and all this other stuff. Absolutely. So there's a similarity there. Absolutely. Will Smith saying he wanted to be a vassal for love or a vessel for love 15 minutes after hitting a guy live on international TV and then getting a standing ovation is just an incredible summation of what Hollywood was all about. And that's the thing, like, the Oscars signaled that this was okay. Like, that's what they did. They're like, hey, you hit a guy. You should have revoked. I mean, like, maybe you don't want to revoke his Oscar, but like, send him home. Yeah, send him home and give him the Oscar still. I don't know. Toss it to him and say, you're out of here. Like an umpire. Normalizing attacking comedians that offend you. Half of Twitter this evening. So somebody had said here, fuck you, Ethan. No, he said, they responded, he defended his wife, something I know you aren't familiar with. Now, here's the thing. It seems like people are just going after H3 just because they don't like H3. Here's the thing, though. Realistically speaking, I'm somebody who identifies with like my masculinity and my manlyhood more than a lot of other people do. I'm a little bit more of a traditional person. I don't think everybody needs to have this value, but I do. I believe in taking care of my wife and all that jazz. And there are scenarios where I do think that morally, because legally it's never okay, but morally it's okay to it's justifiable. Let's not say it's okay. It's justifiable to hit somebody. This isn't the scenario. All right. Outside of the context that it's a comedian making a joke in a place where jokes are made. Right? And you know it's going to be made. And you know you're going to get roasted, by the way, because that's what the Oscars is. It's a boring 3 hours with some funny bits in it. Because it's so boring, they need the people, the kings and queens to get insulted just to make it viewable. Which means maybe this was a whole orchestrated stunt. I don't fucking know. Let's say that I'm in a bar with my wife and somebody says something along the lines of like, oh, your wife stinks. She's smelly poo girl. Right? Something worse than that. The first reaction is, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. Then if they don't stop, the next reaction is going to be to hit them, right? Now, you say, like, legally it's not okay. Morally, I don't care. That's just the way it is. If you can't, from like a man-to-man perspective, respect my wife, then I'm not going to respect the law. That's not what happened. Will Smith could have very easily said, hey, stop. He could have gotten up there and grabbed the mic. He said something. He could have waited till his Oscar speech. There's a lot of things he could do, but he had a massively disproportionate response. And that's us removing the aspect that it's in context. It's a joke that you should be ready for. Okay. Now, some people have said, I've seen this, that Chris Rock isn't particularly liked by some people in the black community. I guess he wasn't. I guess Jada decided to orchestrate a walkout years ago, and Chris Rock criticized her and like whatever. That's his prerogative. Just because he's black doesn't mean he has to agree with every person. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. You might think the whatever initiative they're running with is stupid. I don't really know. I don't really care. It's still not justifiable. Then Hila responds with, "My husband should punch people for me if he really loves me, right? So I can feel safe and secure. And I should go back in the kitchen while he goes to work and provide for me, right? Hell yeah, good day for us women." Now, obviously, that's a bit of an exaggerated perspective, but the point here is that like, hey, like this is a form of like a toxic masculinity. Instantaneous violence is an aspect of toxic masculinity, and not for nothing. The defense of Will's actions is kind of defending the angry black man stereotype. I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like, again, everybody loses their shit, right? And I didn't look at this as an angry black man stereotype, but when you start bringing race into it and you have communities justifying the anger, it seems like, and again, it's a fringe group within the community, you're perpetuating the stereotype that it's justifiable to have a disproportionate reaction as a black person specifically. Again, you're creating a scenario, basically the racism of lowered expectations. That's what you're effectively doing here, and I need you to understand that that's a thing. That's a big deal, right? Anyway, Ethan retweeted, "I'm proud to say that my husband wouldn't have done this on television for the world to see. My husband would have used the platform Will got a few minutes later and spit some fire on the mic for me like a badass." Now, I wholly doubt that because Ethan's a cuck, but I guess so is Will Smith. Now, all jokes aside, I think that would have been the correct way to operate this scenario. Then we got Petty Paige. This is like a music video. I watched this. It's just Chris Rock making a joke years earlier. I tried to make this video before and I watched it. This got DMCA'd, so we just simply cannot watch that. Anyway, H3H3's black fans are unsubscribing due to his commentary on Will on the H3 podcast. Whenever discussion is raised on the subreddit, it's being deleted by mods, silencing black and POV viewers. Here's the thing. I think it's well within Ethan's wheelhouse to talk about this. However, I also think that it would be a good idea to platform a black content creator. I recommend FD Sillinger. I think it's okay. JD. Oh my God, I'm so dumb. I get so confused. JD. All right, I'm just going to do it like this. Papa Gut. Good. I did a reaction video to them a while ago. FD Signifier. I have the brain rot. FD Signifier. Okay, that's a good person to platform. I've seen them. They're an activist, like a black activist. Probably no better person that you could talk to and platform. I understand you may not want to talk to somebody like Petty Paige because she stinks. Her mom's great though. I understand why you would want to talk to somebody like FD Signifier. He's a black American that has like a very in-depth understanding of like black issues. Right? This would be a good opportunity to platform a black person while educating yourself and your audience on a potential black perspective. Even if you disagree. I don't think there's any problem with white people weighing in on black issues. I do it all the time. That's why people are like, oh man, this whitey. I don't know, something like that. This cracker. In all honesty, I think it's totally fine and it should be encouraged for white people to engage in black issues, but I also think that the only way to truly engage is to have discourse with black people on these topics. I think that, I think you should like have a conversation. If you don't think, I mean, listen, here's the thing. If you don't think that it's okay for your podcast, you don't want to hurt the traction, do it on your H3 Speaks channel or whatever. But frankly, I think that it probably wouldn't be something that people want to see too much. And you want to know why? Because people don't care about black people. I'm sorry, but they will just find it boring. I think you should still use your platform, even if you get less views, because more people will see it, the discourse. I think that you should use your platform for good. And that means sometimes not getting the most views that you've ever gotten. And I think that there's an aspect there where he's like, I don't want to engage in this because I think that if I engage in this, I might not get views. But that's the thing, man. Some of the I guess leftist Twitter space and online space, it's mostly white people, by the way, is so toxic when it comes to some of these issues that it makes other people, especially other progressives, afraid to talk about progressive issues because it feels unsafe. It's like they're gonna shit on me if I have a difference in opinion. That really isn't that big of a deal. I mean, he doesn't have a massive difference in opinion. Maybe a lack of understanding of black issues, but frankly, I don't think it's there. But talk to black people, Ethan. You have a platform, you should. Especially since you have a platform that's like drama-esque with some social justice topics thrown in the mix. Verdict: Ethan Klein needs to employ a black person so that the discussion about the nuances of assimilation, race discussion, misogyny, and others racial stereotypes and microaggressions. I think that's a great idea because then you only have to pay them 66 cents on the dollar. Like, I like that. How do you like that? How do you like that? Just kidding. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not a bad idea to be more diverse. It is a bit bizarre. You have a bunch of white people that might be a little, that might skew the podcast a little bit. You know, I think that a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I think that's stupid. You shouldn't hire somebody just because they're black." Or you should, and like, listen, within context, I think that you should. I mean, if you're going to talk about specifically, and Ethan does occasionally talk about like social justice topics, you should have a little bit more of a, maybe not hire somebody, but at the very least, have somebody on retainer to have a conversation with when you talk about a black issue, to be like, "Hey, here's my pundit, FD signifier." You know what I mean? Have them come on. What do you think about A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z? Oh, well, you know, I think about it. There you go. Then you have somebody that, you know, somebody to recall on when it comes to this perspective. Employing a black woman would be beneficial not just for diversity, but so race discussions isn't held by an entirely white crew. The lived experiences aren't going to be something they can understand, and honestly, he may need some help. Being colorblind is negating the history of black women and hair and the significance of that. White teams in general need to employ black people regardless, though not just Ethan. Now, here's the thing. White people do tend to look at things as more colorblind. A lot of white people treat black people the same, which you should, obviously, on an individual level. So most people don't have to really worry about this. But when it comes to a more societal level, and again, Ethan sometimes talks about things from a societal perspective, you need the perspective of marginalized groups in the mix to contrast your own perspective. Even if you don't agree with them, you should platform the perspective because other people might. And it's about the positive discourse. Now, what I'm getting here is that black people or black women specifically have an issue with hair, and there's a significance in hair, which I don't personally understand, especially since I have none. I do understand women having a greater value in hair, and that a lot of that comes from the fact that women are very heavily judged on their beauty or their looks more than their accomplishments, while men don't have that problem. It's also more common for men to be bald, so it's more accepted, generally speaking. Right? Now, if I had to take a random guess, I'd say that the issue with black people hair or black people's hair, I don't know, that sounds racist, whatever. Black people's hair being more significant to them probably has something to do with historically being shamed in Eurocentric societies for having hair that isn't white enough. Right? Either way, even if we could have a nice conversation about how black women's hair is more significant, it doesn't explain the fucking ghosts in my house. It doesn't justify Will Smith's response. It is still massively disproportionate. It is. We can have a nice conversation about that, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't excuse, because what you're effectively saying here is that like that would excuse it. That would excuse the situation. And the thing is that Jada is on record saying that she doesn't really care anymore, that she's over it. And like that doesn't mean that she's over it, but that means that like you should be able to take a joke about it. And is also signaling to Chris Rock, who may have seen the interview, because everybody's like, did Chris Rock even know she had alopecia? Well, if you think that he knew she had alopecia, naturally he would have seen her talking about how she doesn't care about it anymore. Because I saw that video too. She's like, I'm over it now. That's a summary of it. That's not exactly what she said, but she's like, I used to really upset me, not so much anymore. Why do we know Chris Rock didn't fucking see that and go like, oh, I guess it's fair game. Let me go after Jada for her bald head. Right? Made a nice light joke about it. You know, you can't cherry pick which things people haven't seen. Oh, well, he may not have known. Well, I think he knew. Well, if he knew, then he's educated on Jada enough to know that she doesn't care about it. Nothing here signals to anybody that it's this deep point of contention for her that really upsets her. Sorry, I'm just cracking my neck. So yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, here we go. We have this Here we have a little bit of this here. Here we go. Let's listen to this.
Or apes or whatever, right?
Okay, let's turn it up just a smidgen. That's a word that they use in Petty Paige's country. I think she's English. Smidgen. let's give a wank to this video.
Or apes or whatever, right? Our Neanderthal cousins were probably just raping like crazy. So there's definitely something like in us to like conquer. Men want to like conquer.
Right.
So it's, you know, women are in a nature setting like to be conquered.
Now, listen, that is a hot take, and we're going to get into the specifics of that in a second. But we know Ethan, there's not a whole lot of depth behind what he's saying. Like, he's not sitting here with, like, at least at this point, I don't know how he is now, probably not a lot of depth. But he's not super in depth into the conversation about sexual assault rhetoric, and that, especially in the United States or in first world countries, I guess you'd say. I don't know. Because, you know, he lives in America, so you'll say in the United States. But here's the thing, Petty Paige. I know, girl. I saw the video of you talking about your past problems and how you're in your redemption arc. I think that it's a little hypocritical to be talking about your redemption arc and how you're changing for the better and moving on with your content. You changed the name from Petty Paige, like Paige Christine, I don't know, whatever the name of you. I think it's Christy. I can't read. I'm fucking dumb. Because you're going on your redemption arc, but all of a sudden you're criticizing Ethan, you don't like him, and now you're going to invalidate his redemption arc. I think that's hypocritical. I think that's kind of shitty. Now, that being said, in a nature setting, probably, historically speaking, there's probably an aspect of men that are designed to be more aggressive and maybe even rapey. A lot of animals do that. But does that make it okay? No. That's what socializing behavior is. We're socializing people out of bad behavior. That's what being human is about.
Neanderthal cousins.
And so there's probably an aspect of that in us. And honestly, if we want to have a real conversation about rape culture in America, this is to my young men. If you don't listen to this, there's a massively high possibility that you will put a woman in a scenario where she's going to feel like you raped her. Now, this is the nuance and this is the perspective of sexual assault culture in society is like very heavily centralized. Oh my God, I can't speak. Around, we'll say for lack of a better term, unintentional sexual assault. This is a massive conversation we need to have. We're going to have it right here. Okay? I'm going to give you a scenario. Third date. Do the 3D. We're going to watch this in 3D. Start here. A guy picks a girl up from her house for their third date. Pretty cool. Looks like a gnome, like a Keemstar. Oh, sorry. Right? Takes the girl out to Applebee's. I don't know. Maybe it's after 10. They have half off apps. Not too bad. This is what Applebee's looks like, by the way. I don't know why. It looks like a car now. Whatever. And he pays, right? Because that's the chivalrous thing to do. And afterwards, he takes her to his house. His house is a little different. His house has a small garage. Okay? And there's rooftops on both of them. Then they do the natural thing, brother. They watch a little Netflix. You know the deal. A little Netflix and chill. Watching a good movie. They pick Ant-Man. I don't know. Who cares? Couple minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes into the movie, he makes his first move. Goes after her. And he's like, hey, you know, goes for the boobies. And maybe he starts kissing her. Maybe she's consensually kissing him. Right? Go to number 2. He works his hand down there to her pants. She goes and she touches his hand, pulls it back up. Maybe they stop kissing. They go back to Ant-Man. A little while later, he goes for it again. Right? Because he's horny. He makes his move. Maybe she's ready. She's not too into it, though. She'll do the kissing again. Doesn't want to go beyond that. She's really into the Ant-Man movie. They stop. Happens a 4th time. Now she's starting to get a little afraid, but she's still pushing back. I don't really want this. Stops. 5th time's the charm, though. And eventually she submits. Now, why is that some form of sexual assault? Right? Because she consensually decided to do it. Well, did she, though? Because here's the scenario. You picked her up from her house. She doesn't have a car. You went out to Applebee's and you paid. Right? Now, I know what you're saying. Well, just because I pay doesn't mean I'm entitled to sex. Does she know that? She knows that. But does she think you know that? Because you didn't stop 5 times. Then you took her back to your house. Right? What the fuck is she going to do? You going to leave? Is she going to yell? And you know what? And this is a fucked up part that people don't even know either. This is maybe arguably the worst part about this. There's so many young women, or women in general, tell me this. They don't think you're a bad guy, so they don't want to yell or resist too much at the expense of offending you. Part of it's they don't want to make you feel bad. Part of it's they continuously rationalize their head that you're a good guy, so it's not so bad. It's the fucked up aspect of sexual assault, and it's one of the reasons why some women don't even report it. Because you'd be surprised how many times women will be like, "Yeah, I was sexually assaulted, but he wasn't a bad guy." How fucking heartbreaking is that? That the most traumatic moment in her life, and she's more empathetic towards you than you were to her. If that doesn't upset you, then frankly, you shouldn't be having any human interaction. It's fucked up. It's fucked up. Then you put on Netflix for the old meme, Netflix and chilled. You watched Ant-Man, which makes you thought it would have made her horny because Paul Rudd, so sexy. And then you continue to aggress onto her until she felt like she had to submit to it. A lot of men are going to do this to a lot of women. And this is a conversation about the way that sexual assault manifests itself in the United States and in a lot of other countries. We're beyond the aspect of, we know that that marital rape exists. We know that you shouldn't drag a girl behind a dumpster, or a drunk girl, and rape her when she's unconscious. But this is just part of the game. This is just normal. It's called persistence, right? That's the way most people see it. This is just a situation of persistence. It's not. This is a situation of sexual assault, violation of somebody. If you don't put somebody in a situation where they can give you reasonable consent, and you pressure somebody to having sex with you, even if you don't mean to, you didn't have a consensual engagement. You violated that person. And so you need to be aware of this. Is especially something that young men need to be aware of. Young men need to be aware of the fact that they need to create situations where women feel safe. And, sometimes women too, like in general, you should do this, but you need to create situations where the other person feels safe enough to say no by you saying, we don't have to do this. And that if we don't do this, we could go on another date. You don't need to emotionally be withholding of whatever. And then women, mostly, you need to make sure that you don't put yourself in this position. I know that's horrible, but, you got to maintain your safety. Just because cars should watch the road doesn't mean that you shouldn't tell kids not to look both ways before you cross the street. So, take your own car. Maybe go halfsies on those apps. They're already half off. Don't just go back to his house. Maybe go back to your house. All these different scenarios. Hell, maybe have your friend call you tell your friend where you're going and have them call you at a specific time. And if you don't answer, have them show up to the house with your dad or something. No, I'm not kidding. It's a fucked up world, and you got to do what you got to do. And so while I don't think Ethan was talking about that, there is a biological conversation. Men tend to be more aggressive. I mean, it's just the reality. And so what he's saying isn't necessarily false. I don't know why he was saying it within context. But again, Eddie Paige, you're on your redemption arc. So I think that you need to allow him to be on his. At the end of the day, like I said, I think it would be a good idea for Ethan to platform like a black content creator. I understand you don't want to bring just a regular old Joe Schro. You want to bring a content creator that's presented themselves in a way where that they're like a credible individual. FD Sillinger, fuck me, bro. I just can't speak. I don't even remember the name exactly. I don't know anybody's name. I can't even say Paige Christie the correct way. To fuck me in the ass. Anyway, it's a good opportunity to have a conversation with a black content creator about this. Though I'm not so sure he would necessarily disagree with what's happening or disagree with Ethan. So yeah, there you go. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and another special shout out to all my Patreon and Twitch subs. If you'd like to support this channel further than you already have by just watching the video alone, go down to the links below where you can sub on my Patreon, which will allow you to get your name on this beautiful black wall. Or you can go to the Twitch page and you can actually use a free Amazon Prime sub, if you have Amazon Prime, to subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.